There's an inherent need for cities, especially like Los Angeles, to densify. A building that is significantly more expensive to renovate or revitalize, let's say, because it'd be a change of use, and upgrade, than it is to tear down and build something new that's kind of crappy. It's hard to incentivize anyone to keep that building. We have a great historic agency and advocacy and control here, and there's a lot of rules, which is great. But there's also just a lot of buildings that are old and cool that are really ripe to be torn down because of densification of our city, or again, the cost to maybe just renovate these buildings. So I think it's more of the economics and the development community that might not see value in some of the old buildings. The Office of Historic Resources obviously cares, and they see it as cultural resources. Even if it's not technically a historic building, it still is part of a context. Like, you can have a whole street of a bunch of buildings from the 40s, and maybe they're all 4 stories tall, and it creates a really nice context of a street. Certainly not all the buildings need to be saved. I would never say that. But how do you keep some buildings? How do you keep the character of the streets? How do you keep the character of an identity without just stripping it all away? One project we're working on, which we're super excited about, it's in the Arts District, and the Arts District is kind of like the super hot and happening revitalization area, adaptive reuse. It's getting to the point where people are starting to come in and just tear down the buildings and just build new massive projects, which some of them are great and are totally needed. But if that's all that happens, then there's going to be no sense of place, which is why it's so vibrant right now. So how do we have that mix between? One project we're working on, there's a really crappy little 3-story building. It used to be like a brothel and an SRO, and it's totally graffitied up in little tiny rooms, and the owner is in love with it. He loves this building so much. It has so much character. It's so funky. It's such a specific place and time, and even now. He's a developer that's also an artist, and so they do all these amazing events in the building, and they kind of use the aspect of all these little tiny rooms to have different things happening in all the different rooms. So one time it was all different artists were doing something. Another time it was performing artists were doing things like more theatrical. And then the last one was really cool. They had an entire orchestra of the entire building was playing one song at the same time, but every room had a different band from a different culture. But there was speakers throughout the whole building and in the center that was playing the same song. So they were all playing the same song in their own vibe. Anyway, I go on a tangent. It was just so cool. But he wants to do a big hotel, right? So he wants to keep the building and do a big hotel. And then we got hired, and we're like, you know what? I think we can find a way to keep the building and keep the aspect of those little rooms and just all the character of that crappy old building and build the new hotel. So we got it to work with the same amount of FAR and with all the same zoning and planning, and we still got to keep the building. And so to me, that's great because you can do this hybrid of densification and new and exciting and and bigger, but also keep aspects of what was there.